So this is our final image. And before we start with the VFX, if I have to place any geometry, what would be the first step we have to do? We need to find the right coordinates, X, Y, and Z, right perspective, okay, before we can place any object here. So uh, we guys already learned nuke, how to do that, all right. And nuke also can be used, but the most faster way, and it's just a one flat image, still image. So what I'll do is to solve it, just to make it more faster, I will use synthi, and I will assign the X, Y, and Z coordinates and use this scene to solve the proper coordinates, okay. And I will load my image, and our image would be into my RenderPass references, and that's the one. It don't require the frame rate because we are just working into the flat single image. All right, and it's a very good tool actually for the match moving. Previously we were using it, but now we are shifting you guys to the nuke, which is again a good tool. But right now, just to make it a move faster, edit scene setting, and I will wipe Maya, which is good, and start giving them the coordinations. This would be uh, parallel to Y, on x-axis, and on y-axis. So I have my y, x, and now I have to work into the z-axis. So my z-axis would be and this would be the parallel to z-axis. I'm hoping that these two walls should be parallel. Okay, parallel to z-axis. Right. There are a lot of more y's I can use. Parallel to y. Parallel to x. Parallel to x, and I say this is x-axis, my x-axis, my x, y, and z. Y is always up, x is this one, and z is the depth. Parallel. Okay, now this one is on y-axis, means this is my x, y, and z, and these are the supportive ones which support my x, y, and z to define throughout the environment. So when I hit aligned, oh, there's something is wrong, I have to check. So z, let's say if I change my direction, hit align, here we go. So now when I go to my perspective, you can see my ground is perfectly aligned. So whatever I will create, it will perfectly goes along with. Okay, so we can take a small test. I'll say quad perspective, and this is my wall. So just to check, I will create a simple box here. See, it fit perfectly everywhere, all the way from here, here, here. Okay, and when I can see, it's going perfect. Alright, so it is nicely aligned. This cube, I remove it and I will export this file export as my ASCII scene, my ASCII scene. Click and render pass, and I will say file 01. Alright, my job is done. I closed it. Yeah, save, and let's open that into our RenderPass file 1. Alright, and into that we can see we have one camera 1, which is come from our synthesize. So I go and select and try to reload my environment, and I'll say I don't use image sequence because hence it's just a flat image. Okay, yeah, so that's my image. My grid is perfectly matched there. Alright, saved it, and let me file import our asset, which is our drum. That's the drum. I will import my drum here. It's so small. Okay, we'll make it a little bigger. And try to place closer to the wall. This would be this side of a wall, this should be this side of a wall, right? So I will put that. Okay, so it will stays here. That would be the position, okay, of our dustbin. We'll put that one there. Now everything is set, my file is ready. Okay, now what we had to do is we have to start working into the render passes. Okay, now right now my this drum already have a default shader, but when we do the render passes, when we are creating all these render layers, we have to customize our shader according to the passes we are going to use. Alright, so first thing is, let me create polygonal cube. To getting receiving a shadows and bounciness of a light, the ambience of a light, I need to fake a wall here, this wall and the ground, right, where the shadows and AO would be existing. So what I'm doing for that is I'm creating a cube, and I'll use this, delete. Looks like someone turned on the symmetry. Yes, okay, so I will mimic that this is my wall here, right? And I can, as I can see that this should be, see, this is the line, that's the area, that's the limitation, and afterwards we have this hole going inside, right? So I will extrude that inside. So we exactly mimicked my entire scene. As you can see, it is exactly going perfectly right. Only thing, this part needs to be there. We go. Okay, so I will, and let me remove this, all right. So all the light and everything is, I'm trying to have my ground and my walls as a reference. Everything is there. Okay, I can use it. I can bring it up a little more closer, but I think this much it's already quite enough. Otherwise, if you want, you can just to avoid any complication. Bring it up even closer also. Now we have our reference. Let me freeze it, delete history. I will name it as my reference geo stands for geometry, bg. Alright, that's my reference geometry, background geometry. Okay, that will give me the reference of. Okay, now let's see the lighting before we start with the render passes. How exactly the lighting is working? Lighting is straight towards this top here, this area. You can see these shadows. Lighting is not very hard, very soft. It's look like it is filtering, and it's not very direct light that casts a very sharp shadows. As you can see throughout our environment, the shadows are quite soft. Even here also, it's very soft shadows. You can see that even with this point, the shadows is coming all the way from here to there, and they were creating this triangle. Okay, so means shadow is quite blurred out. They're quite soft. So what is the function we use in our mental ray renders? The radius, light radius. Remember the light radius, how much the radius we increase, it will increase the expansion of shadows, right? So that we need to carry on. Okay, and we have to create a one. There's only one light source here, which is a natural light source. And so let's start creating a light. So what I'll do is I will create light, and I will create a area light for it. Okay, when I'm placing my light, I have to check whether, see, all these walls are nicely lit, even this side also, means the light is able to hit this region also. Okay, means it should be something like this, so it will hit the entire region. Okay, and currently, just to check, what I'll do is let me hide this outliner. So we have this free center delete history. That's my CG drum, my light, and reference geometry. Okay, in my CG drum right now, I will apply the simple basic Lambert shader just to see how exactly the light is working on. Assigned, and let's take a render. Flat on the top, but this area I still need more light to appear. Okay, which is not happening. Something like this, but not on this corner. Did you see this corner is dark? You see the walls corner, they are not dark. Okay, so what it means? It means that I need to shift it a little. Now I have to start working with my lights radius. Okay, the light radius means it should be the function of shadows, and hence we are using our mental ray, means we need to use ray trace shadows. Alright, shadow rays. So let's start with the shadow rays of 30. Ray depth I will make it to 60, and to get the shadows I need to turn on my ground, which would be this. And yes, now we are working on. Now we are rocking. Now it will start coming up. Oh no, now we can. Now we need to make some changes. As you can see this area, it's completely dark, which is not should be. So there we go. Okay, that's it. That's all what we need, right? Okay. Now that is our primary light. Okay, which is going to cast the shadows. Okay, the light source is straight on the top. We're hardly getting a shadow, but still we need to make turn on the shadow to get more depth of it. Okay, and I will rename it. Always try to rename. That's my primary 9. Alright, now there would be the secondary light because the light source is coming here and it is bouncing around to all these walls and here. Alright, so what I need to do is I need to create my secondary light which fills it, kind of a fill light. So create light and I'll say volume light. Volume light, I don't prefer to turn on the shadows. We only required one, what you can say, you only prefer to have one primary source which casts the shadows. Okay, now we are going and see there's something shadows coming out with. Let me check whether this one have our shadows on. Turn it off. Both the shadows are off. Okay, there we go. Okay, now our drum is there. Okay, this area I still prefer if we can fix it up something to that region. And intensity try to make it even softer. All right, all what I want to do is just try to, it doesn't matter, see it is creating a high intensity. Doesn't matter, we are not lighting up the walls. Our whole purpose of putting all these light is just for my drum. Okay, so again let me check. Okay, hmm. Looking better. All what I have to do is try to 0.75 and 0.75. We are getting through something like that. Okay, now my primary light energy I will make it to the 0.85 and yep, we are there. Okay, so the most important, most critical area when we do the render passes, the first thing what you have to do, try to push as much possible to get your light source right. The lighting, that's the most important thing. All right, so that's my primary light, that's my fill 01, that's fill light. Okay, fill light 1, fill light 2. Let's save our scene. Okay. Um, so our one step of our first stage of render process, setting up a scene, it's almost done. Alright, so we almost finished it up with our light. I just want to test with just a one small thing is, what if I do a little bit of a light linking? What's the meaning of a light linking is, I'm sure in your lighting class you must be exploring it. You connect any particular light to the one particular object or one particular region besides without affecting any other area. So what if I take these lights and I'll go to the window, uh, relationship editor, and we have something called a light linking. Light centering means this light affecting everything, this light affecting everything. I'll say don't affect my walls. I don't need the walls. Okay, and so now as you can see, it only affecting with the drum here. Okay, so I can push it a little back. So, and this light, I'll save this image to comparison and render it. So we'll compare. I think we are going even better. I just have to push it up here and take this light, try to bring it up even far. Okay, I'm happy with this one. This is better. Okay, we'll go with this one first. All these shadows which is looking very prominent, very dark, don't worry, when you break into the different passes, means my shadow would be separate like we did in our earlier example. If it is in a separate pass, I have more control. I can desaturate it, I can reduce its opacity, I will make it more softer. It's in my control. Okay, but the lighting wise, lighting source, yes, it's going fine. Okay, so now we can pursue, we can continue with our render passes. All right, so before we start with render passes, okay, what are the things we need to do? What would be the first one? Let's name this one as my AO, ambient occlusion, right? Ambient occlusion, do we need a light source in the ambient occlusion? No, we don't need. We only need both objects. So I'll select both these objects, add selected, and we'll apply the presets. Attribute in the presets, I will use occlusion. Occlusion will try with a good amount of sampling, means the particles you can see. And let's take a test. There we go. Okay, did our ambient occlusion is that strong? Can we modified it? It's looking very strong actually. There are a lot of depth to the corners, which actually is not in a real case. It's not that much. Can we adjust it? Yes, we can adjust the attributes, the expansion, the intensity. Okay, and so let's do that. Into my AO, I go to its attribute here. Okay, and the darkest, I'll make it a slight grayish. Okay, there we go. Okay, so my AO is ready, set. All right. Okay, so my AO is done. Let's move on. Let me save my file. And now what we'll do is we'll start working with our drum. Okay, select my drum, add selected, and what we're gonna do here now is making a diffuse pass. Okay, so the diffuse pass means I already select my drum here. I have to create a diffuse shader. Diffuse means a flat shader. I will use the Lambert. Always name your shaders because you're gonna end up with so many multiple shaders, which is quite confusing here. So diffuse, and name your AO. My AO also, it will create a shadow here, so name that one also, so there's no confusion. Into the diffuse pass, what I'll do is ambient maximum diffuse 0, so it's a flat shader, and I will load turn out the filtration. What is filtration? It's anti-aliasing of all the pixels, so it will reduce the quality, because when we're doing a final renders, it already have filter. Okay, so it is doing filtration twice, which reduce the quality, so we don't want the image filtration. Okay, it's a personal choice, but I prefer that. Every time you don't need to keep every time loading multiple images, because you already load one image here. So what you have to do, middle mouse, drag and drop. Okay, and assign hypershade, why I closed it, and assign my diffuse to my drum. Alright, I don't select any lights here, we don't need it, we don't want it. Flat drum here. Okay, and nothing else. Okay, so my name it as, that's my diffuse. Okay, now let's move on. Let's create a new layer, and that would be my specular. Okay, into the specular, what I want is my specular to behave, so I will use a blend. Now this is something you have to observe your environment. You have to observe the material. It's a metal, old rusted metal, and how much specularity will it require. So it all depends to adjust with your settings here. Make sure you always choose the color black with the blend. Name it as my specular, and we have a bump map, so I will plug on my bump map also. My bump map is the normal map. Okay, tangent space normals. So did you see it will start getting all these slight up and down surfaces, rustiness. It's not as smooth. Okay, and now we have to adjust this specularity. Okay, so we need to take some renders out, and only for the CG drum, because wall I don't require, and I need all three lights to create a specularity on it, and I will assign my specular. Output data supporting. Yeah, of course, otherwise how will it render? So, but the thing is, mental in output data type RGB edge not directly supporting the image format IFF. uh, it's showing some fault with this image and what that image, uh, my references, no, my asset, that's a normal map which is a JPEG. What if I convert it into the my IFF path are not supported? Yes, I think save image, and I will choose Maya image here, and under the assets normal new, done. We have normal new, and into my bump map I will, there we go. Okay, all right. So the whole thing is why actually the Maya creating Maya usually it never creates any issues with the JPEG format, but sometimes if they do, it means that we need to convert to its more familiar used to format, which is a Maya IFF format. Okay, so we'll convert that image into IFF. It's working absolutely fine. Now it's too much specular, it's too high specular. So what I need to do is I need to adjust my shader. So I'll go to my material specular and specular color, try to make it reduce, and specular roll on is the softness, eccentricity is the sharpness. Okay, that's looking fine. Now I'm feeling happy. That's better. This is much better. Okay, so get a good nice specular also. Let's move on.